You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
The coronavirus pandemic has changed customer needs. For more take-home items, bulk items, and convenience retailers have responded. Today, we're going to talk about what NACS members are telling us about their business operations and what you can learn to bring them to your business. Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
And I'm Jeff Leonard with NACS. And before we cover some of the findings that Carolyn mentioned, I do want to note that we are in this new normal. We are talking about the new normal in terms of our survey findings, but our podcast is also the new normal. We're working from our home offices with our up-to-date recording equipment. It should sound great and the content will match. Second, we're recording this on April 1st, and we want to give that as context because things may change by the hour or by the day, and we want to give you a sense of when this was recorded and what it all means.
Today's episode, we're going to focus on what members are telling us, NACS members are telling us about their business operations. We'll share the metrics from survey results, but more importantly, what we're going to dive deeper and talk about what they mean and what retailers are specifically doing. This is not an April Fool's joke. Today, my co-host is also our guest, Jeff. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm fine. I'm a co-host, and I guess I get double pay, huh?
You do. It checks in the mail. Make sure you Lysol it when it comes.
Yeah, pick it up in a couple months.
Yeah, right. We'll send it to your office address. So let's start by looking at the big picture. Tell me more about this survey that you send out. When did it hit the ground, and what were some of the biggest takeaways you thought were in there?
Well, we just closed the survey today. Today's April 1st, and it is April Fool's Day, but this is not an April Fool's survey. We got about 105 responses from retailers across the country. And I think the key takeaway, and we asked them about all kinds of different things, operations, products, how are they getting products, what's going on with their employees, and then a lot of open-ended questions, which I think is probably the most interesting part of any survey. But the key thing that we found is there's a real pivot going on, and retailers are moving from some immediate consumption to much more of the grocery mindset. And that is following trends that people really are looking at minimizing their trips and essentially minimizing their risk. How much can they get at once and not have to go place to place to place to find things? So literally, consumers are reinventing convenience into a new definition, and retailers have responded.
So that's awesome because, I mean, I know where we live here, we're in Virginia. We're right outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm in Fairfax. You're in Falls Church. We're only about 15 minutes away from each other on a good day with no traffic, of which we have none. But people are finding that sometimes you do have to go to a lot of different places. And I've seen on many different of my relatives' Facebook feeds, like, I found the toilet paper. It's actually at a convenience store. Go to the convenience stores. They've got the toilet paper, which for some reason everybody needs and buys all of it. And now I can't find it anywhere. I guess I should try the convenience store. But that then goes into what people are doing. They're out there. They go in, they go out. You're not allowed to be going to multiple stores, at least in our state. You're supposed to shop, bulk up and everything, and then go home. No one more trips here and there. So people are finding things, I think, at our stores. We're seeing that in this survey. So aside from products, let's start with operations. Let's talk about how these stores and companies, both headquarters and stores, are getting the work done, getting the people where they need to go, getting the staff where they need to be. What's changing on the operation side, especially as it applies to safety or the way they're doing things on a day-to-day basis?
Well, health and safety really, really popped in terms of looking at operations. We asked the question, are you enhancing your cleaning and safety operations? 99% said yes. What that means is statistically one person did not say yes, but that doesn't mean that person is not paying attention to cleaning it. What it means is maybe they were doing an amazing job already and they just said, hey, look, we're cleaning every 30 minutes already. But what we found is more than anything else, they are cleaning on a regular basis. And in some cases, they're showing it. 99% are cleaning more. And we're hearing everything from as frequently as every 20 minutes. And the key thing related to that is if you look at some of the other things that that were in our survey. They're talking about how they're posting videos of cleaning on Facebook, how they're posting pictures. They're showing it. They want people to see before they even walk into the store that they are paying attention to cleaning. And that's a big deal. And then you also look at what they're doing at the pump. And we've seen some of these rumors. I mentioned Facebook, and who hasn't gotten some of these things where the number one place to pick up, this problem or that problem is the gas pump because they don't clean and things like that. First off, they do. We're hearing every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, every 2 hours on such a regular basis. But we also asked, do you have hand sanitizer at the pump? Do you have gloves at the pump? And it really is pretty impressive, the number of people who have these items. And then we asked the open question, just anything else. And most of them said, we want to provide gloves, but we just can't find them.
Well, and then let's talk also, Jeff, I saw you shared some of the survey results with me. It was the hand sanitizer. People are stealing it from they're filling up their little Purell bottle from the stores. Several other retailers mentioned that. So stop doing that. Don't do that. Don't steal the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, especially we all have to be in this for everybody. So some of those things just not cool. And we know that cool. there are various people that freak out about things. But what I was saying is providing hand sanitizer. 31% said they were offering hand sanitizer at the pump, and 20% were providing gloves. We also just kind of played around with the math a little bit. And when people talk about just the number of people that use a gas pump in a given day. Now, we know that every retailer is different, but throw some math out there. We know 32 million people in a regular day fill up at a convenience store. When you look at the number of convenience stores selling fuel, it works out to about 250 fuel customers per day. Again, everybody's different. You average that out, 250 fuel customers a day over 10 dispensers or 10 nozzles. That's 25 per nozzle, around 24 hours, means on average 1 an hour. So if you're cleaning every hour, odds are, and I know stats can be deceiving, but it's a pretty quick turnover. It is not something where you're getting dozens of people using the same nozzle. So kudos for the industry for what they're doing to make sure that even if somebody doesn't have access to sanitizer or gloves on their own, they're regularly cleaning these pumps to make sure. And it's not just at the pumps. It's also inside the store. It's all touch points. It's garbage cans. It's door handles. It's all of those things.
Bathrooms.
And yeah, well, and also we didn't ask specifically about bathrooms, but we do know that about 1 out of 5 people go visit bathrooms when they go to a convenience store as part of the let's get some food, let's make it a bigger excursion. And I loved your phrase earlier. You used a phrase, they bulk up, not in like let's lift weights, but let's lift as many heavy things as we can and take them back to our caves, because it is more of this, how do we bring things back home? And there's definitely less use of the bathrooms because people are just like, that's more things to touch. We just want to get stuff and we want to go.
Well, on the road trip, people are on our road trips and you're not really allowed to go anywhere anymore. So, when people would use the bathroom, they might be going from, their house to grandma's house or their house to their vacation. And you just can't do that. So I think we're seeing that. I think, Jeff, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, on some of the truck stops or the roadside stores might be not seeing as much traffic or, bathroom traffic, since that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned truck stops because I know there's some concerns now. There's so many truckers that are doing so much important work. And you're even hearing these reports where they're various groups or edicts or regulations are looking to limit the number of people inside a truck stop. Truck stops are pretty big facilities, and the longer they have to wait, the more it adds to complications in how they can do business. So, that's a concern. And we've also seen with convenience stores, some various areas may have a 10 customers in a store at one time rule. And, pros and cons to that. We understand the whole idea of not having too many people in there, but about 1/3 of stores that responded to the survey said they're doing something to minimize the number of people in there. But actually what we're seeing more of in looking at operations is looking at the idea of plexiglass barriers that we always want to be, but having conversations with our customers. But these barriers, if they make people feel safer and they are in fact doing something positive, you're seeing some people install them. Now, I know they run from $80 to $100, and it can add up. And it's a long-term solution, but it is a potential solution that we're hearing from retailers that they're using.
So we're not talking about the cage. I can't remember what we've called this, but where you see a lot of, maybe in an urban store. We're talking about like a shield, essentially, maybe a 4-foot. I saw them at one of my grocery stores the other day. Maybe a 2-foot plexiglass clear thing that goes in front of direct eye contact. You can still talk to someone around it, but it's for the safety of both people.
Yeah, and it's also perception is reality. If everybody feels safer, and certainly this is not one of these things where you want to fake something, but there's also the perceptions. And if you can be as safe and effective as you can and show it with other things that make people feel really comfortable, it's probably worth considering.
So I definitely want to just remind listeners that we are recording this on April 1st. And I know we have, at least in my state and then federally, a news briefing every afternoon, which when that comes out today, tomorrow, some of these rules might even be mandated. So just know that what we're talking about right now is what we know right now. So maybe there'll be a difference on how people can move, where they can go, what they're restricted from doing or not. Maybe some of those things will be lifted by the time you listen to this. But so I just wanted to point the date of recording out to that again. I want to pivot again. I like that word pivot. You used it earlier to products. What are retailers seeing in stores different in terms of products, foods, things they're selling, things they're stocking differently?
Well, we're known for immediate consumption. 83% of the items we sell are purchased, or that are sold are consumed within the hour, and we've really become more around take home. And another way of saying that, I saw this word and I kind of threw the two phrases together. But we've really gone from impulse to primal. And it used to be you came into the convenience store and it was almost like a little bit of productive loitering. If you want to stretch your legs, look around, that looks interesting. I'll spend 30 seconds looking at this. I'll make my purchase, talk to somebody, and then I'm on my way. But now it's that primal must bring stuff home, and it's much more around those home items. But that's also presenting some opportunities, because when you look at some of these items, especially when you're comparing to a bigger store, and by the way, this is in no means looking to say one channel's better, but when you go to a convenience store, it's a smaller format. There's fewer people there. And what we're seeing is you are seeing an uptick with some stores of some of those grooming products, some of the baby products, some of those things that you can just go and grab quickly. But in general, we're seeing a lot more in the way of grocery items being offered and being emphasized in stores. So to a certain extent, we've kind of, in a 2 to 3 week period, the industry has ripped up the playbook on impulse and on immediate consumption, and is looking much, much more like a small grocery store in many respects. So in a perfect example, and you can find these on Facebook, we had this guy on, I'll probably mispronounce his name. It's Lou Perini's, right? The guys in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They have this $30 box now where they put some household items in there, and they just have it available. $30, and it has stuff like bacon and cereal and milk and some of these other household items that people are picking up on a regular basis. And it's a really clever idea about making, then people don't even have to go through the store and shop and worry about things like that. Really clever and really thinking about the consumer. So you're seeing a lot more of those kind of things. Now we also hear that when you talk to retailers about, we ask them, how's the distribution system? And half of them said, good, it's fine. We're getting what we need. Another 20%, 18% actually said, system's fine, but we're supplementing it. We're getting some other things. We're getting some different things that may or may not have been available from our distributors. And then the rest, they were kind of like, well, we've had some challenges, but not terrible. It wasn't an overall negative, but So that was good to see that the distribution system is still holding up, even as we do this pretty significant pivot into at least short term, a new type of sales approach and delivery, pardon the pun, along with curbside and things like that.
Did anyone say anything about drive-thrus? I mean, they're not prevalent in our industry, but are they using them more, those that have them?
Yeah, I think somewhere around 1 in 9 said that they're taking advantage of the drive-through. A little bit more, it's like 12, 13% were looking at delivery. We're looking at curbside to a greater extent. Also had some open-ended comments where people are saying they're using that walk-up money window that traditionally used to pass through money. They're using that for customers, not just at certain points during the day, but during a greater extent of the day, so that everybody feels comfortable with how they are at the store.
And we talked a little bit on our episode earlier this week when we talked to Kevin Coop about cash, whether or not cash is exchanged frequently. And I think it might be. I mean, I don't know. Do we even have any data out of this survey on that? Are most people turning to cards and Apple Pay or any kind of non-touch payment?
We did ask, what are you encouraging contactless payments? And 32%. So basically 1 in 3 retailers said, yeah, we are encouraging that. So you're seeing other things like they may not require signatures, because then that's one less thing somebody's touching. Now that may affect interchange rates. I'm not going to suggest it's an awesome idea unless you know how it affects your payments. But how might you do things like that can add to the customer's feeling of health and safety?
I read an article today about New Jersey, which is one of 2 states that still have full service gas, that somebody's considering, in the legislature or the gas stations themselves are asking to get rid of that, at least during this episode, because or during this situation, because people are not wanting to hand their credit cards over to the attendant, and so the attendants are actually calling out. And so they're talking about whether or not they should continue with full serve gas. So, I mean, things are rapidly changing. Again, by the time you hear this, maybe that changed already. I don't know.
Jeff, and interestingly, there are some stores that are doing full serve now for the customer for a feeling of security. And I do understand the whole situation going on in New Jersey. But the other thing, as if this is rapidly enacted in, say, New Jersey or in other parts of Oregon, this is not a knock on people in those states, but they don't know how to pump their gas. They really don't. And I grew up in near next door New York, and there were plenty of times I'm at the gas pump and somebody would come up and say, I'm from New Jersey. Can you show me how to do this? And they weren't being sarcastic. So
I grew up in New Jersey. I'll take that. My mom used to grow, she lets my dad do all the gas pumping, but she grew up at where you used to be able to, but now she's like, I don't have to. I can just drive in and someone else does it. So some people like that. But actually that brings me to another thought. A lot of these stores are offering that to senior citizens or people over 65 or, more than they would have before. If you're over 65, honk your horn, I'll come out and pump your gas.
Yeah, and those are awesome ideas. First off, as the news has one story and they look for different ways to cover it, it is a great way to tell your story about what you're doing and how you're thinking about your customers differently, because ultimately it's about communications. And we got some awesome ideas from retailers about some of these clever ways they're talking to their customers. We also asked, at least touch upon employees. Right now, about half of the retailers in the survey said that they are okay with their employee pool. Some have said that it's difficult to find workers because of childcare or things like that. That's more difficult because
with schools closed.
Yeah, and so there are challenges like that. Some say they're hiring more because there's more demand or fewer people are able to work. Others say that demand is down, so they have fewer people. But related to employees, one of the questions we asked is, what's the most effective way for you to tell your story to customers? And by that, it can mean anything. It can mean what your specials are, but how are you addressing this? What are you doing on a daily basis? And face-to-face customer interactions was number one. It was more than social media. It was more than the website. Only 3% had the website. So everyone's looking at social media or signs inside the store, or how do you interact with employees. Short conversations, not lingering conversations, but short conversations. People still need that human connection. And it can be pretty effective in just communicating just a little bit more when people need that communication.
That's for sure. And well, I mean, you're in and out. You know that you're not allowed to be. You're not supposed to be out of your house, at least in most states, for more than what you need to do. But man, it's good to talk to someone that's not my family. Some of these days, I love my family. I know they're going to listen to this, but that's the only 4 people I've seen now, or 3 people I've seen besides myself, and a couple of neighbors here and there that I need to get out. And it's great. I had a great conversation when I was at the grocery store with the person who was checking me out, because she worked at a restaurant, and this poor girl was a senior in high school, and she was sad that her graduation wasn't going to happen. And she had worked at a restaurant in our town, and she got laid off, and the grocery store was hiring. They're actually definitely in need of people. And there's some great workers out there who need jobs and who are willing to work, whether it's short hours, long hours, that might be able to fill some shifts. So that labor pool is big and ripe for picking too, if you are in need of additional staffing.
Yeah, and also you really struck upon something else when you talk about context. And everybody, there's a great Chick-fil-A video. If you go on YouTube and type "everybody has a story," it shows how every customer that comes in the store has a different experience, and some of them are going through difficult times, particularly now. And there is a way to have that human connection and to do those acts of kindness. I know, it doesn't even have to involve money, but they can be really, really long lasting. And that hits upon something, Carolyn, that you and I talk about on a lot of these podcasts. And that's the community element. And probably my favorite question in there, because we also asked, what are you doing? Was, are you doing anything in the community that is supporting the heroes, not just the heroes that you have working in the stores, but the heroes that are first responders, medical personnel, and things like that. And roughly half said they're doing more, which is amazing, because it is a very challenging time with all the issues we have about reduced customer count, increased expenses, challenges with getting new products. But we also asked, what are you doing? And break that down into 2 things. One is, what are they doing? And some of the things we heard were they're offering free lunches to various groups, free drinks, free gas to various groups, and deep discounts on other things. So those are some of the things available. Now, what's cool is who they're offering them to. Police. The police that are there making sure everything is in order in this new normal. Same thing with fire personnel. Somebody was saying every Monday they bring box lunches to the local firehouse. And sure, that takes employee time. Sure, that is not making them any money, but I guarantee that is going to make a difference long term in a lot of people's minds. The discounts and free items for people who come in to stores with medical uniforms on of some sort, or first responders uniforms of some sort. That's increased. I mean, it was always there with a lot of stores, but definitely that's increased. Also love the ideas. We know that with kids out of school, particularly kids in need, there are 30 million kids that are not in school now in up to grade 12. And many of them are in need, and they may not have that meal. So you're hearing about things like some various franchisees of 7-Eleven. We've seen these pictures where they're offering lunch to kids, a slice of pizza, 2 slices of pizza, things like that. But we're also seeing that other retailers are saying for kids, free lunch or discounted lunch. And I mentioned the gas discounts earlier. Some of these retailers are offering free gas for these groups that are bringing school lunches out to places and finding ways so that they can minimize their costs, so that most of their money goes towards food for the kids and not any of the overhead like gas, etc. And that is really inspiring when you look at those types of things. Also, how you can provide fuel for the food banks and others who are really helping the less fortunate now because, like I said, this will eventually end and people have long memories, and the good memories will last way longer than the bad memories. And it's a chance to stand out.
And I think we have a lot of resources on our community toolkit, NACS community toolkit online, and some great organizations that we've had on this show before. Share Our Strength, who does a great program with No Kid Hungry. They're working with some 7-Elevens and some other major retailers in and outside of our channel. And then there's also Feeding America. They have food banks throughout the United States that are looking for food, looking for overages. If you're making to-go meals, perhaps reach out to your local food bank to see if they would take those that are already made but unsold. So all those opportunities, if you're looking for the American Red Cross, they're always in need of help or donations. So whether it's donations or from customers that are willing to give through you to another charity, or just even reaching out directly. So we've got a ton of those, which is at convenience.org/community toolkit. Check that out. And you hit on one last thing before we close, which is food. Food for others, but food for customers. That's changed a little bit. I think I've seen it in my own day-to-day. All of our restaurants in our towns are offering carry-out and or delivery that never did before. Beer is another one, big personal favorite of my own. That's something that you couldn't deliver that I knew of in Virginia before this. I don't think you could. Now, my favorite restaurant can send me. Last night, I had a meal deal where I got a couple sandwiches and a crowler of beer. So I think some of those rules may change after this is all done with when you can buy things, when you can't, when you can deliver them, sales tax, things like that. But Jeff, from this survey, did you find anything interesting that stood out in terms of any of those items I just talked about, but things that you eat, drink?
Yeah, we didn't dive into specifics, but I'll talk about a different type of food for thought related to communications, and because that really will tie it up, and I think we'll address your question, and of course, anybody that talks, one of the first things they tell you is answer the question you feel like answering. So, guess what? I just did. But wanted to just go through the last 3 open-ended questions that we had. We asked, where are you getting your information? And number 1, they said from NACS. So again, like you just said, convenience.org. Start from there, but we have all kinds of ways to go dive in deeper. There are coronavirus resources, et cetera. But 82% cited NACS as a place to get information, which of course you'd expect out of a NACS survey. Other high ones on the list, CDC, other those health groups, and then state associations, because different rules, different states. So make sure you stay in tune with that. But the last 2 questions that we asked, totally open-ended. And one of the questions, the first of those was, what's the one thing that you would like the public to know about your operations right now? And it really ties it up with what we started talking about in the beginning. More people said, we are serious about clean. And this is not just for now. This is for good. We are going to ensure cleanliness related to virus, cleanliness related to food safety, cleanliness for the look of our stores, because that's going to be the new normal, and that's going to be something that will change. Aspirational comments like, we are creative and we will get through this better. I mean, it's always really awesome to hear. On the other end, and I won't say the profanity, even if we could blank it out, but it's like, this beep is hard. That's one of the things that they wanted to communicate, that, it's not easy to kind of reinvent yourself with all these other challenges and keep it going.
Well, and I think many of them said too, when will this be over? I wish I had an answer for my kids, for you, for me, for them. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. But,
soon. We'll get through it.
So then the last thing we said is, when this is over. And yes, you're right. There were people that said, just tell me when this is over. And I don't think they were looking for an answer, but it was more one of those rhetorical kind of questions. But we said, what is the thing you're going to focus on when this is over? And number 1, that you heard over and over in different ways, and clever ways and profane ways, but it was like, we will have a plan next time. And you can't necessarily predict what it will be next time. It could be a hurricane. It could be a tornado. It could be a fire. It could be another one of these things. But They said that we need to have a plan next time, and we will build that out. And one of the things that you've worked on, Carolyn, is there is the opportunity to take a plan that exists and modify it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we do. We have a plan. If you go to convenience.org/disaster plan, you can you can evaluate your plan. If you had one before this, if you put one together when this was happening, or if you don't have one at all, you can make one. We've got job aids in there. It's a phenomenal resource. We worked with the Department of Homeland Security and experts within the emergency and disaster fields to put this together. And it's been downloaded almost 1,000 times now. Retailers are using this. Emergency managers are downloading it to see what the convenience stores within their cities and towns are using. So it's like you just said, have a plan. Whatever it is, have a plan, communicate it, share it, make sure your employees know it, make sure they're part of it. But convenience.org/disaster plan, check it out. Like I said, it's not only specific to hurricanes or disasters. While this is a disaster, it's also an emergency. So it's non-hazard specific, I should say. But thank you for mentioning that. And if you have any questions, let us know at NACS.
But getting back to answer your actual question from 3 minutes ago, you're asking about food. So actually being respectful that you did ask a question. Going back to that, and we did ask, what about seating? What about things like that? Most stores, 60% said, or 66% said that they have shut down their seating. That doesn't mean 34% didn't. That means it could mean that 66% had seating before and they all closed it because we asked, did you or didn't you? Not if you did you? So, and then self-serve. People have eliminated self-serve. But tying back to that, we have evolved so rapidly to looking more like a restaurant. And we know the challenges of the restaurants right now. If they can't deliver, if they can't do curbside, even if they can, how are they staying in business? Because that has dramatically affected the restaurant business, and it's dramatically affected the convenience business. And how do they provide food service? And one of the comments we had in that last open-ended question, we said, what's the thing you're going to work on? And they said, building back food service. And I think that's another thing that we need to look at. It'll tie back, hopefully, to some of the other things that stores have said they're doing or want to do, which is a focus on cleanliness, a focus on community, a focus on what they mean to customers every day. It might be a little easier to build back that food service, and that's certainly something we hope.
Well, Jeff, I really appreciate that you've taken this time to talk with us about this survey. And, do you think maybe we'll do another one? And if we do, we'll see y'all. And I hope you can respond to that and tell us what you saw, what you did when this is all over. But I think we learned that right now we just learned that you should have a plan so we can work on that. But be obvious, be helpful. Think about your community, care about your community, and care about your customers. And I think that's going to win you in the long run because retail was already evolving and customers are evolving, and they probably have more rapidly than they would have otherwise from a brick and mortar to an online or to a morphed carry out pickup style. So if you weren't there then, you might be there soon. So when it's all done, I look forward to looking back to see how quickly that timeline expedited and changed the face of retail. And we have some podcasts coming up in the future weeks on that as they relate to this virus and around that. So, Jeff, thanks again for being with us. And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.